Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn Lewis. Thinking back to when I took art classes, I remember my instructors doing painting demonstrations and how much knowledge I gained from that, watching how they mixed colors, applied the paint, and hearing them talk about their thought processes. Through picking up all this knowledge, I gradually formed my own style. First step is to prime the canvas. Here I'm using some gesso mixed with acrylic colors to make a coral color. And I'm going to apply this. Get some on here. And then I will roll it on with a roller. This is a foam roller. You can use a brush, whatever you want to spread it. When it's thoroughly dry, I then take a 150 grade sandpaper and just lightly go over it and get all the rough edges off, make a nice smooth finish. Now what are we going to paint? Well, while in California, I did a plein air study on location, and I also took a photograph for some reference to do back home in case I wanted to perfect this little study even more, and that's what I'm going to do. First off, we're going to draw on the canvas. I use some odorless thinner and a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm going to draw on here just placement of where things go. I'm just making sure it's all going to fit on here correctly. And we want to make sure when we do a horizon line that we get it straight. So we'll see. I'll make it as straight as I can. And that's basically all I'm going to draw. The next step is to block in. And I'll use the same color a little bit, very thin, and I can just start blocking in. This will give me an idea of what these masses and shapes that I'm putting down are going to look like. It's easier to change them now while it's nice and thin. I work up to the thicker paint as I go. I'm using a bristle brush. This is a filbert. It's easy to draw with, and it takes a lot of abuse when scrubbing in the color like this. We don't have to be perfect at this point. Just keeping it very loose. It's getting an undertone. That's really about it for the block in using this earth tone. I'm going to take a larger brush to start blocking in with the color. This is number 10 flat. It's a bristle. I'm going to start by using the dark colors, which are the greens. I mix a cadmium yellow medium, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of cadmium red light. Now I'm going to try to keep it a little thin. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid. This is a alkyd medium. It helps to thin the paint. It also helps to hasten the drying time. I said everything will be gone over again. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of some holes in here for the sky to peek through, but I will be painting back with some negative shapes later on. This is just the initial block in, just so we can look at the painting in general and work on it all over as we go. And as I go, I'm always making corrections. If I see something I want to correct, we do that as we go. Maybe I had a shape a little too big or too small. I'm not too worried about all the little subtleties of color at this point. This is just the initial block in. I like to make irregular shapes, vary them so that they are interesting. You can see how that tone underneath is showing through, and it gives it a nice warmth, which is what this sunset is all about. This is what attracted me to this scene. Whatever attracts you to a scene that you want to keep that in mind as you're painting it. You want to do it all the way through, not lose that focus. I lay my paint out in long lines like this because it's easier to grab from one of the edges rather than when it's in a big round pool and you dip your brush in the middle. You tend to dirty up your paint much more easily. This goes a little faster. Once you get to the next part of going over this, you have to slow down and take your time. One thing about painting in the studio is that you have more time, more so than you do when you're outdoors painting. Outdoors, you have to make very quick and accurate decisions, which helps you in anything you paint. They both help each other. The studio painting helps your outdoor painting and vice versa. That's really pretty much, once I get this part down here in, all I want to put in for now. Okay, now the next point I'm going to go is to the hills in the background right here. So I'm going to rinse my brush out, get all that green out of there. For the mountains or the hills back in the background, I'm going to start with a white. This is a titanium white. And it looks more or less like a purple mixture, so I'm going to start with a permanent rose, add to that. Looks very bright, you can see, but it's not going to stay that way. A little bit of ultramarine blue. We're going to tone it down with a little bit of some cadmium yellow medium. I'm trying to get the right temperature of the color that I want to. How warm or how cool it is. That's going to be closer. Let's try this color up here. I have to be careful that I don't get into this green at this point too much. If I do get green on my brush, make sure you wipe it off before continuing, or you're going to mix the green into the other colors. Remember, this is the initial block in, so we will be going over this and adjusting it. I'm going to step back here so I can try and see a straighter line, or when I put the water in, I can come in and straighten it up. Sometimes I feel I'm wiping more paint off my brush than what I'm putting on the canvas. All right, now that we just laid the initial block in of the hills in the background, the next step, I'm going to put in the shadows in the sand in the foreground, which is similar in color to the hills that I just laid in. Always try to use the biggest brush that you can use, because your painting will not look real busy. You'll keep it more simplified by using the biggest brush. I sometimes see my students with the tiny brush and there's so many little strokes. And for this stage, it's not needed. Now I want to put a little pathway in of some lighter sand in through here, so I'm not going to cover this up too heavily. I want a nice little rhythm going in to take you back in.